We're going to talk about Brooks Bouquet. I have two different examples of it here. We're going to do this one first. Notice that I have plain weave down here, plain weave up here, and the actual technique that I did in a contrasting color. Notice carefully that these are different techniques, slightly different. The same, we're going to kind of do it the same way, but notice that in here we have a warp thread that is a vertical warp thread, so we've skipped it. Okay, and it just gives it a slightly different look. Okay, I'm going to put that one aside, and I'm going to demonstrate on this loom. So again, here's my base of plain weave. Now, you will remember when we did the lino, I had you put in 2 leaf sticks up above. I want you to do that again. It will help you with your shed, and I know that you will be grateful when you have to find your shed again, because we're not twisting the threads this time like we did in lino, but they are leaving their original position. We are pulling them together. I find that when I begin, I like to tie on to the sides. I think that when you think back to some of the other stitches we've done, if you bring your thread up from the bottom and then just start doing the stitch, sometimes it's not as secure on the edge. So I go ahead and tie maybe a single knot. Then I tie another knot on top of that. And you will have this little end. I kind of like the ends, but I mean, you could work it in if you didn't like the ends. But notice I tied my thread around 3 warp threads. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now I'm going to put my finger under here, and I'm going to grab another 3 warp ends. That's what I'm going to do for this particular stitch. 3. Notice that I'm bringing my thread up above and then around the warp threads. And I'm going to pull. So I've encased them. Now when I pull it tight, it pulls them together. Now do you see how I mean that they're not really twisted, but they've left their straight position and they are pulled together. The warp threads are pulled together. So I'm going to hold it underneath, put my thread to the top, go around 3 warp threads, and pull it tight. And I'm going to do that all the way across. And depending on your set, the number of ends that you have in an inch, you can do 4 threads, you can do 6 threads. Doesn't matter. You can figure out what the look that you like. And notice that I'm being very consistent the way I do this, holding my thread to the top, going under the threads. Thread to the top, going under and around the threads, pulling them tight. You can do this going from the right to the left or the left to the right. And in a minute, we'll see if I end up with a group of 3 at the end. I did. Okay, now here, you also need to secure it. So here, remember our half hitch? I'm going to kind of come through that loop and pull it tight. And then I'm going to cut that end off. So that is my row of Brooks Bouquet. Now I can push this down a little bit further if I want to. Sort of accentuates the little spaces. Okay, now I'm going to take my needle and get rid of that. Gracefully, I can put my next pick of weft right through here. Okay, and beat it down. So I've used that one. Now I'm going to pull it out, pull this one out, but here's my other shed. Now, you could go back in and you could find your shed if you lost it, but for these 2 rows at least, it makes it much easier to find your shed again. Okay, I'm going to use mine. Notice how this is really coming in. I've kind of warned you about that with these lace weaves. Going to beat that down. Okay, now I can pull that one out, and now I can really see my pattern, so I can start going over, under, over, under, over, under, all the way across to do a couple of rows of plain weave. So that is Brooks Bouquet.